everyone, my name is Paul and welcome back to the new news. I hope that everyone's having a fantastic day. I hope that you guys are enjoying a wonderful start to your weekend, and I hope that you, your family, and your friends are safe, and if not, I do hope that you find that safety and security in the very near future. There's a ton of stuff that's happening throughout the world today, a lot of stuff happening, of course, in Ukraine and throughout Europe, the Middle East, Asia, and so as we go through the news here today, unfortunately, a lot of what makes the news, generally speaking, is not good stuff. It's usually a lot of things that are relatively kind of dismal in their subject, whether you're talking about war, famine, natural disasters, counterterrorism, what have you. Usually it involves a lot of human suffering. In fact, from the World Food Program director late last year who said 345 million people are marching towards starvation, that is how many people actually need humanitarian aid at this point in time. So please be sure to check out the video description below. One of the two major goals that we have here at the New News is to raise a lot of money to help a lot of people that are affected by these very same news stories. So as we're going through the news here, trying to inform you, which is our first major goal, we want to be able to try and raise a lot of money and help a lot of people throughout the world affected by news situations that we may be talking about here on the channel, whether that be the war in Ukraine, whether that be natural disasters or what have you. So please, in the video description below, you're going to find a bunch of organizations down there. Many of them have been actually suggested by you guys as the viewers. They've gone through a vetting process to make sure that they are a reliable source that you can go to and you can provide, knowing that your money is going to be going somewhere. But on top of that, they are also 70% or more of the donations that they all receive do go directly to their programs, with 30% or less, with an emphasis on or less, going to things such as those salaries and administration's costs that make some organizations very controversial, which is why you may see some big name ones that aren't listed down there. And if you do have more of these organizations, please continue sending them to us. We would like to get as many as physically possible. We want to cover every square inch of the globe in some kind of an organization so we can support whoever needs it throughout the world as we continue on with these news stories. So thank you very much for the support you've already given those organizations. And if you can't give a lot to them, give a little. If you can't give anything at all, that's okay too. One of the biggest things you can do is actually help support the channel, help us grow this. The more people that come here and watch this, the more of an impact that we will have. And we'll be able to do a lot of good throughout the world through you guys and through this channel. So please, if you can't give a lot, give a little. If you can't give anything at all, that like, subscribe, that helps the channel immensely. It immensely helps our outreach, and it's a lot that we can do the bigger that we get. So thank you very much for supporting the channel. It's already gone very much further than I had ever anticipated that it would, and I can't wait to see what the rest of 2023 brings. As we get ready to dive into the news here, a lot of stuff, obviously, to cover, but a lot of it has to deal with conflicts and things like that. If you have any questions, if you're joining us live tonight, feel free to jump into the live chat and feel free to ask questions. I'll be more than happy to try to answer them to the best of my ability. Give you a little bit of background on myself. I served in the Marine Corps between 2016 and 2020. I was a corporal in an 0352 anti-tank missile with 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines, and I went to the Middle East for 2 separate tours. My first tour between October of 2017 through March of 2018. I was in transit in Kuwait for about a month and a half back and forth, but I spent the majority of my deployment, about 4.5 months, in the country of Syria, specifically in Deir ez-Zor and al-Hasaka provinces, where I was supporting Operation Inherent Resolve, the fight against the Islamic State, with Special Operations Forces and coalition partners, as well as the local SDF, or Syrian Democratic Forces. There, I provided a lot of aid to people, provided a lot of security for them, conducted kinetic missions and stuff like that against Islamic State forces, and also provided stabilization efforts in the region. After that, I went back to the United States, where I ran an armory for about 2.5 years as a B billet within my position, overseeing the maintenance and weapons of all heavy weapon systems inherent to a infantry battalion for the Marine Corps, and then went back to the Middle East on October of 2019 through March of 2020, where I was the Javelin team leader for the crisis response company out of Kuwait, where I spent the majority of my time. On New Year's of 2020, I went to the Baghdad Embassy complex, which is currently under attack by about 4,000 protesters and Kataib Hezbollah militants. There, I provided security and also assisted in putting down that protest while overseeing all anti-armor operations over the entire Baghdad Embassy complex. After that, I went down to Saudi Arabia and into the Red Sea, where I trained Saudi Arabian Marines preparing to deploy to Yemen as part of the Saudi coalition there, fighting the Houthi rebels. I'm a subject matter expert in anti-armor warfare and armor doctrine, as well as a fully cross-trained machine gunner, a partially cross-trained radio operator, and a fully cross-trained rifleman, and also a CLS or Combat Lifesaver Certified Marine, meaning I've received additional medical training on top of what most Marines will receive, and I do have battlefield experience in providing casualty assistance. So, outside of that, I try to remain well-rounded. I am very interested in other topics, geopolitics, history, science, human geography, that kind of stuff. But I claim to be an expert in none of it. An expert or not, it doesn't matter. I implore you as the viewer to please do your own research. There is no substitute for your own research. You should always be doing your own research. If any of these subjects that we are talking about, any single one of these nights, does interest you, please feel free to start looking into it on your own. You'll find out a lot of stuff that maybe I just can't cover in this period of time, or maybe I don't have the full picture of as I'm doing the research here. But feel free to please go through and do, if you would like a starting point, our maps are available on our website. The link's in the description below. We have them archived clear throughout the entirety of the war since we've been reporting, and you guys can actually go through and follow along. I post them every single night before I actually start the live stream, so you guys can go in there and you can follow along on these. You can click on the links. Some of these have associated articles that go with them, as well as PDF documents and stuff, original PDF documents that you guys can look at and actually go through and see what we're talking about and have associated works that I may not show on stream, or that it's too graphic, too gory, or if it's just other information from other organizations and I really don't want to steal someone else's work. We just happen to find these associated articles with this stuff. So thank you very much, and we'll get ready to jump right into the news here. Our main story, of course, for the night is coming out of Ukraine, which has been at war since February the 24th of 2022. We're very quickly coming up onto 1 year of the war. We're only about a month away, and a lot of developments ongoing here, of course. The big one, or one of the big ones for tonight, is the Sea Kings. The Sea Kings have arrived inside of Ukraine. The SH-3 Sea King helicopter is an anti-submarine aircraft, anti-submarine helicopter, as well as a search and rescue helicopter that's used by the UK's Navy. A number of these have been donated to Ukraine, are now with Ukrainian forces there down by the Black Sea. This was verified by Alexei Reznikov, who's the Minister of Defense of Ukraine. So fantastic to see that we have those Sea King helicopters coming in. And it is going to the Ukrainian Navy and the Ukrainian Marine Corps. A deputy minister has been laid off over bribery allegations, something that the world has already recognized and something that Ukraine recognizes is stated very openly, is they do have a problem with things like corruption inside of their government. And they are continually implementing anti-corruption measures and stuff that under the direction of course, the EU, as they are now an EU candidate, but also under their own accords, and they have been for a significant amount of time. Corruption is one of the catalysts, one of the major catalysts when it comes to the Maidan Revolution to begin with, let alone the pro-Russian sympathies that many of the oligarchs inside of Ukraine had. So the National Anti-Corruption Bureau, or NACB, detained Deputy Minister Vasyl Lozhinsky on January the 21st. The Deputy Minister allegedly accepted $400,000 USD worth of bribes in procurement of electricity generators. The Ministry of Infrastructure issued a statement saying they provide full assistance in the investigation, and Lozhinsky has been fired. The investigation has been ongoing since September, according to police. And again, that's, of course, from the Kiev Independent as well. And the Defense Ministry leadership has been summoned over purchasing food at inflated prices. Ukrainian newspaper ZN UA reported that, according to the agreement signed by the Ministry of Defense, the ministry is purchasing food items at 2 to 3 times the retail price for military units located away from the front lines. For example, the Ministry of Defense purchased eggs at the price of of Ukrainian hryvnia 17, which is about 46 cents per egg. The retail prices of Kiev's market is about 7 Ukrainian hryvnia, which is about 2 cents per egg. Ukraine's parliamentary committee on defense summons top defense ministry officials to address journalists' allegations that the ministry is buying food at inflated prices. This is one of the things that you can end up seeing. Of course, we have this here, but we are seeing these kind of things ongoing. This is some of the allegations that we're seeing. What it is at home versus, or what it is in retail price versus what the military is getting. This is something that is a problem no matter where you go. Contracts are a big thing. Military contracts are a really big thing, and trying to get that information, trying to keep those prices low is very common. It's not really a military problem. It's more of somebody taking advantage of the military, because military contracts are lucrative no matter where you're going. This is an issue that the United States has had. Navistar, which is a large company, produces a lot of vehicles, whether you're talking about civilian truck vehicles, such as the International series of trucks. Navistar owns the International brand. Or whether you're talking about their defense division, which produces an MRAP called the Navistar Max Pro. The U.S. government's actually been investigating Navistar because of allegations that they have gone way over budget on their contract as to the need for replacement parts and things like that, and their procurement. So a lot of people lining their pockets. So this is not just an issue that necessarily Ukraine deals with, but also other countries throughout the world that deal with this, as certain organizations are trying to take advantage of those lucrative government contracts and providing whatever goods. And this is, you see this also with the F-35 program being a really difficult issue to deal with. You see that with Navistar and their defense division. You can see that with a lot of procurements, and what that goes everything from fuel and food all the way up to multi-million-dollar weapon systems. But the main news story for tonight and coming out of Kyiv is the fact that the Ukrainian people have said goodbye to those that were killed in the Brovary helicopter crash. They fell well to the Ukrainian leadership members who died in that helicopter crash today. They mourn the passing of Minister Denis Monastritsky, Yevhen Yenin, and Yuri Labovich, who are all heroes who died in the helicopter crash in Brovary.
Плине кача по тисині, плине кача по тисині. Мамко ж моя, не лай мені, мамко ж моя, не лай мені. Залаєш ми в злу годину, залаєш ми в злу годину.
President Zelensky and Elena Zelenska, both, of course, visiting as well and paying their respects. Keep in mind the Zelensky family, many of the ministers who were killed in that accident were very close friends with the Zelensky family too. And with Kyiv wrapped up, we now move down here and into the Donbass, where the meat and potatoes of the war is ongoing. Of course, we start off with the latest daily Donetsk update coming from Pavel Kolenko, the head of the Donetsk Regional Military Administration. Then today he says, quote, on January 20th, number of victims of the Russian army in Donetsk Oblast increased by 3 killed and 4 injured. And he does provide us that graphic. This comes out at 8 a.m. every single morning. 2 people killed, 4 injured in Bakhmut, with Zalon also having 1 person having been killed. Total, since February the 24th, in the Donetsk region, 1,316 people have been killed, 2,870 have been injured. And this does not include areas such as Volnovakha, Mariupol, Donetsk, and in Mariupol alone, we know tens of thousands of people have been killed, but those figures simply cannot be added. At least not until its liberation. Fighting continues around Solidar. And today we get to learn the wrong way of filming propaganda. We've seen a lot of propaganda, especially when it comes from the Russian Federation on this. So throughout the entirety of the course of the war, we've seen it on both sides, but we especially see it here on the Russians. And this is not the correct way to film propaganda, in case you haven't figured that out. Much like War Gonzo, another Russian propaganda war correspondent was speaking on the intense situation in Soledar, stating that there is still fighting in and around the city. She was struck in the knee with an incoming rifle round. So she was shot. It's important to note that she was wearing a full Russian military uniform and equipment with no identifying marks to be a member of a press corps, meaning that she was not identifiable or distinguishable from someone who is in the military and therefore could be misconstrued as being a member of the military services, the Russian armed forces, and does not get those protections as being labeled as a member of the press.
Совсем рядом с нами идет стрелковый бой.
Артиллерия штурмовиков на время подавляет огневую точку, с которой нас обстреляли. Под прикрытием благополучно переходим пути и уже в относительной безопасности за вагонами Настю аккуратно кладут на заднее сиденье и увозят с линии огня. Мы же возвращаемся со станции, как и пришли, пешком, небольшими перелесками. Потеряв Солидар, а затем и крупный узел обороны на станции Соль, националисты подтянули резервы, и мы как раз попали под их накат.
Противник себя всячески проявляет. Увидел, что как бы движение, вон противник, посадка. Увидели движение, кучность людей, соответственно, отработали артиллерию. Запад, северо-запад, это нахождение противника.
Пытаются там закрепиться, не дать их отбросить за холм, да?
Да.
Потому что если отбросить за холм, все, дорога наша полностью.
Ну, конечно, да. Они себя...
Because you want to know how bad the situation is in Soledar? They medically evacuated her on a door. By the way, so they medically evacuate her on a door because they don't have a stretcher. And then they put her into the nearest Lada to be driven off because they don't have any military vehicles to evacuate her. The Russians are in an amazing position in Soledar. Well, it's absolutely fantastic. So we know that battle is probably going to end up pretty well. Coming down here into Kotakove. Kotakove was once again shelled. We have heard at this point that there weren't any casualties, but it did strike residential high-rises homes as well as a trade pavilion. And Kotakove Live is about, let's see here, I believe it's about 11 miles behind the front lines there in Marinka. While a car exploded on a mine over here in the Mykolaiv Oblast, injuring 4. The head of the Mykolaiv Oblast Council reported on Telegram that a car blew up a mine in Vitovsk district near the village of Lyubomirivka. 4 people were injured, including a 3-week-old baby. Coming from the official Twitter, or the official Telegram there. Well, down here in Kherson, the shelling does continue. Russian artillery continued to pound the liberated city of Kherson. Last night, rockets struck residential areas of the city. While no figures have been reported, the Ministry of Internal Affairs is stating that there are, in fact, casualties. So, unfortunately, we simply do not know those figures as of right now. Hopefully, those will be updated at a later time. That is everything inside the country of Ukraine, but that is not everything to deal with Ukraine. We have plenty of other stuff in the international news. And with the international news, of course, we start off up here in Moscow. Unable to take, we find that Moscow is just unable to take criticism. And the looking and reading a lot, I've done a lot of reading at this point about Russian and then also Soviet tactics. Of misinformation, disinformation, that kind of thing, just because I'm trying to stay clear of Russian information. And it's the same thing over and over again throughout history, in case you didn't know this. But the Russians are just unable to take criticism from anybody. It's always a, no, you're wrong. And we see that here. So the Russian Federation has put out, so the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs has decided to respond on social media for condemnation against their comparisons under Foreign Minister Lavrov between Ukraine, or between weapons being sent by Western countries to Ukraine and to it being the Holocaust. Stating, quote, "We would like to ask where organizations like the European Jewish Congress were when monuments to liberator soldiers were demolished in Europe, when Nazis were marching in European capitals bearing anti-Semitic symbols and chanting anti-Semitic slogans, and when the Europeans tried to undermine our resolution at the UN on fighting the glorification of Nazism." That is their official response. Then from the official Twitter of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs website. Meanwhile, in Central Europe, Finland has stated that they've announced that a $4 million or that they will provide 4 million euros worth of military aid to Ukraine. First President has said that 400 plus million euros of military aid package to Ukraine, which includes heavy weapons and munitions, in the largest package to date from Finland since the Russian invasion, leading to a total of 590 million euros in aid so far. The announcement did not specify the details of the package. This package does not contain Leopard 2 tanks. If you want more information on that, we can take a look at, or there is more information on the official Ministry of Defense website for Finland. Jumping over here and into Sweden, a couple of different developments. They are going to be providing 50 combat vehicles, 50 CV-90s, which are combat vehicle 90s, and archers to Ukraine. Sweden announced the plans to provide Ukraine, Swedish CV-90 and Archer artillery systems, in addition to the support package worth 4.3 Swedish. I do not know the name of the Swedish currency. I apologize. Which includes 50 combat vehicle 90s, or CV-90s. Swedish armed forces are tasked with preparing for the delivery of the Archer B artillery systems to Ukraine. Once again, come from the official Swedish government. And from SVT in Hitar. However, is an anti-Islamic demonstrator ended up burning the Quran here in Sweden. Turkey has canceled the visit to the Swedish Defense Ministry, Paul Johnson, due to Stockholm's permission for a public burning of the Quran, the holy book for the Islamic faith. Turkish Defense Minister Hulusi Akar said that Sweden should have done everything to prevent such attempts. Similar actions by far-right activists have led to the protests and riots among Muslim populations in Sweden. Against the backdrop of increasing U.S. pressure on Turkey to ratify the application of Sweden and Finland to join NATO as soon as possible, the incident can be used by Turkey to delay the process.
Ja, gör det. Jag sätter på den. Och ja, det var en annan sak också faktiskt. Jag har ju läst Den dummaste mannen i Sverige. Den politiska redaktören på Aftonbladet.
That's the thing about living in a free country. Riley has asked, why would they allow him to do this? And the reality is that the same reason I can talk about things, here on the internet and talk about, what's going on, kind of my opinions and things like that, is the fact that it's those rights that protect me saying what I say here are the exact same rights that protect him in doing what he believes, even if you think he's an asshole. We have had plenty of people come on here onto this channel and give dissenting opinions or saying rather unrepeatable things about myself or the staff or about people in general. Now, being a private platform, I get to remove those individuals, and so do my moderators, right? But in reality, that is how the world works. It is up to you to not be an asshole. It's up to you not to be a jerk. But you're allowed to be one if you want to. That's the reality. As long as you're well within your rights, as long as you're within, as long as you're not breaking the law, then you're allowed to do things like this. The same rights that protect me protect this guy. I do not agree with his statement. I do not agree in burning the Quran. I don't agree with any of that. But Turkey wants to not be okay with someone who lives in a free country expressing their right or using their right to expression of their views. So I don't like this guy, but I think Turkey is going extreme. Congratulations, that is your faith, but that doesn't matter. He lives in a free country where he can express himself. You don't have to agree with the message, you just have to respect his right to be able to do it. And the United Kingdom is going to be building the Ukrainian Navy, it would seem. So the Ukrainian Navy really continues to receive a lot of support that isn't nearly as advertised as what we see going to the Army and the Marine Corps on the front lines and the Territorial Defense Forces. What they're getting, though, is going to be more or less play an important role in after the war. And that is they have 3 frigates that they are having built right now that are being built in Turkey, commissioned. They have just received those SH-3 Sea King helicopters that we have seen, that we were just reported on down there in Kyiv. They also have received many riverine boats and shore patrol boats, very small craft, but important craft for defending your own local waters and the ports. But they're also now getting news reports and photos right now show 2 Sandown class mine hunters or minesweepers from the United Kingdom, which have quickly now been decommissioned and renamed and renumbered, intended for Ukraine. The first one is the HMS Grimsby, which has the hull designation M109, which has been decommissioned and renamed to Chernihiv, with her pennant number changing to M310. The second vessel is the HMS Shoreham, M112 is her hull designation, and she has been decommissioned and renamed into Cherkasy, with the pennant's number now changing to M311. Both of them are armed with a DS-30M Mark II 30mm automatic cannon, as well as 3 miniguns and 2 M240 Bravos, or what the British call General Purpose Machine Guns, or GPMGs. And we can see the hulls of these vessels here. So her pennants have been changed. She's now going to be transferred over to the Ukrainians. Down here in Portugal, more military aid will be headed for Ukraine from Portugal. Portugal has announced its readiness to send 14 armored personnel M113 APCs, or armored personnel carriers, 8 industrial electric generators, 20mm ammunition, and medical equipment to Ukraine. The minister also announced that it would take part in the EU's military support mission and provide training to Ukrainian troops in Germany. Portuguese instructors will start training Ukrainian troops in explosive ordnance disposal, combat medical aid, nuclear, biological, chemical, and radiological protection, and starting in February. While out of Spain, here in Madrid, thousands of people were protesting against the government. Tens of thousands of people took the anti-government protests in the center of Madrid. The protesters are calling for the resignation of the government and oppose the incumbent Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez. Quite a large rally. And as we come back full circle, we come down here into Istanbul, where protesters have started to surround the Swedish consulate. Angry demonstrators are protesting around the Swedish consulate there in Istiklal streets here in Istanbul in response to the right-wing extremists burning a copy of the Quran in front of the Turkish embassy in Sweden.
يريدون ليطفئوا نور الله بأفواههم والله متم نوره ولو كره الكافرون.
Sounds like he is chanting an adhan, which is a call to prayer. "11 Kurdish fighters were killed by Turkish shelling here in northern Syria. Turkish Defense Ministry has published a video of the shelling of fortifications of the Arab Kurdish groups in the Syrian settlement of Tel Rifat. The 11 Kurdish fighters were killed in the strikes, according to the Defense Ministry. The operation was in response to the country's armed forces to an attack in the Turkish province of Kilis. There, the militants fired at the Inshipinnar border post. At the same time, none of the servicemen of the Turkish armed forces were injured, and they do have a nice moto video that they posted about this.
Ateş!
Meanwhile, we move over here and into Iran, where an Iranian protester is currently in a coma due to torture. Hassan Firouzi, one of the detainees of Iran's protests, fell into a coma due to brutal tortures of the Islamic Republic. Hassan has been sentenced to death. In his last call from prison, he asked to see his newborn daughter one more time before he was executed. Param Parivari, a Kurdish engineer and swimming champion, was convicted of waging war against God, which often leads to execution by the regime. He was forced to sign a confession under torture. He gave his life is in grave danger. Be his voice and say their names. Meanwhile, in the southern part of Iran, 2 Islamic State cells have been defeated. The Iranian Special Services announced the defeat of 2 cells of the Islamic State in the province of Sistan and Balochistan. The operations to detain jihadists took place in the city of Iran Shahar. During the searches in the houses, security forces found weapons and paraphernalia of logistics. On phones and media, law enforcement officers found Islamic State propaganda materials, as well as an oath to the leader of the group, Abu Hussein al-Husseini al-Qureshi. Among the detainees were citizens of Afghanistan and Tajikistan. Some of them had combat experience. According to the Iranian Special Forces, the jihadists were planning to carry out terrorist attacks, in particular, the seizure of hostages, foreigners, and businessmen in the port of Shabahar, which is down here in the south. While coming out of Tibet, at least 28 people, have been killed in an avalanche. The incident took place on January the 17th. The avalanche blocked the entrances to a road tunnel in the Tibet Autonomous Region. People there were trapped inside cars. At least 28 people were killed in the avalanche in the city of Nyingchi in the southwestern part of Tibet. 53 survivors were found, 5 of whom were seriously injured. Local authorities have sent a total of 1,348 people and 236 sets of equipment to help excavate a rescue passage of 7.5 kilometers. According to rescuers, the cause could be strong winds and rising temperatures in the region.
Inside is better. Train भीतर तो train भीतर.
现在没有，只有用挖机。
While all throughout Asia, it is now the Lunar New Year's Eve. January 21st marks the Lunar New Year's Eve, the evening before the Lunar New Year. The Lunar New Year is celebrated all over Asia in addition to others around the world. This year is going to be the year of the rabbit. Coming from Secretary Antony Blinken, Secretary of State for the United States. Wishing everyone around the world a happy and healthy year of the rabbit and year of the cat. The United States enters this lunar year optimistic that we can join our friends and allies around the world to create a better future for all. And that's it for the hard-hitting news of the night, but we, of course, still have one last news story that's coming out of Egypt to kind of bring a little bit of uplifting information, or at least something intriguing or interesting to the conversation to try and end the night off on a good note, like we always do. And that is coming out of here. This is in Luxor, which is here in Egypt, where archaeologists in Egypt have discovered a 3,500-year-old royal tomb near Luxor. The tomb was likely constructed at the time of Hatshepsut, a female pharaoh, who co-ruled ancient Egypt. Partial inscriptions and ceramic evidence suggest this was constructed during the joint reign of Thutmose III and Hatshepsut. Thutmose III was a child, possibly only 2 years old, when he came to the throne around 1479 BC. And Hatshepsut, his stepmother, acted as his regent and later co-ruler until her death around 1458 BC. Archaeologists aren't certain whom the tomb was originally built for. Surviving decoration and the size of the few accessible chambers currently point to a royal burial of some importance. The team said in the statement, it's not clear how many human remains there are. So they are going through and trying to grab this and go through what remains of the tomb. It's pretty crazy when you think about how ancient Egypt really is. The pyramids of Giza are as old to the Romans at the height of their power as the Romans are to us now. That really kind of puts in perspective how ancient Egypt really is. But that is everything in the world for today, at least from our sources. Quite a bit of stuff, especially for a Saturday, which is usually a little bit lighter of a stream. But it's always good to be able to report on so much stuff happening throughout the world and be able to keep you guys informed and give you that opportunity to help us be the news that gives back. So please be sure to check out that video description. In there, you're going to find a ton of organizations. All of them, 70% or more of the donations that they receive go directly to the programs, with 30% or less, an emphasis on the or less, going to things like salaries and administration's costs. So please be sure to check them all out. They cover everything from the war in Ukraine, both supporting the war effort and humanitarian efforts, to places in Southeast Asia, places in Africa like Somalia and Ethiopia, to places all over the globe. So, and with that, I hope that you guys have a fantastic rest of your weekend. We hope to see you back here on the New News for our 48 hours of news and review coming on Monday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Central. And with that, my name is Paul from the New News. Please be safe. I hope that you and your family are safe, and I hope to see you once again on Monday. Alrighty, take care, everybody. Bye now.
Going home, Russian soldiers, going home. Бо ми всіх вас тут змішаємо з багном. І стріляно повноваги, і чудно кличе діти нахуй. Тут працює ЗСУ і ТМО. Нам не треба ні конфлікту, ні війни. Та ми готові всіх вас звать до сатани. Тисячі вже полягло, і все більше шверхуйло. То для них нема нічого багном. Від стрия до волноваги чутно клич, ідіть нахуй, тут працює працюєте. Going home, Russian soldiers, going home. Бо ми всіх вас тут змішаємо з багном. Від стрия до волноваги чутно клич, ідіть нахуй, тут працює працюєте. Going home, Russian soldiers, going home. Бо ми всіх вас тут змішаємо з багном. Від стрия до волноваги чутно клич, ідіть нахуй, тут працює працюєте. Ідіть нахуй.